For a long time, I thought closure was something another person had to give me. An explanation, an apology, an admission. Something that made the story make sense. I believed that without it, I would stay stuck, carrying unanswered questions, replaying conversations, waiting for the moment when it would finally feel finished. But I'm learning that closure doesn't come from understanding everything that happened. It comes from deciding I don't need to keep revisiting it. Some situations never resolve cleanly. Some people never explain themselves. Some stories end without clarity, and waiting for closure can quietly turn into another form of attachment. Another way of staying connected to something that already took enough from you. I noticed how much energy was being spent on wanting things to make sense, on wanting acknowledgement, on wanting the last word to feel justified. And then I noticed something else. My body didn't need any of that to settle. My nervous system didn't need answers. It needed safety. It needed stillness. It needed the absence of engagement. Closure, I'm realizing, isn't a moment, it's a decision. A decision to stop reopening what's already done. To stop seeking validation from a place that never offered it. To stop asking questions that keep you emotionally tethered to the past. Moving on doesn't require everything to be resolved. It requires your attention to shift, away from what was and back into where you are. When I stopped waiting for closure, something unexpected happened. The tension eased, the loops slowed, the urgency disappeared. Not because the past changed, but because I no longer needed it to explain the present. Closure doesn't always arrive with understanding. Sometimes it arrives with acceptance. Acceptance that not everything needs to be resolved to be released. That peace doesn't depend on someone else's awareness, only your own. This is part of the quiet work. Letting go without answers, stepping forward without permission, and realizing that you don't need closure to move on. You only need to stop looking back. There was a time when I felt the need to explain everything. My choices, my boundaries, my silence. I believed that if people understood my reasons, they would accept them. That clarity would come from being heard. But over time, I noticed something subtle. Explaining myself didn't always bring peace. Often it created more conversation, more questions, more opportunities for my boundaries to be debated. I began to see that not every explanation is received as information. Sometimes it's treated as an opening, a place to push back, to negotiate, to pull you back into something you were trying to step away from. When I stopped explaining, something shifted. My nervous system stayed calmer. My words became fewer. My decisions felt firmer. Silence didn't make me unclear. It made me consistent. I realized that people who respect boundaries don't require explanations, and people who don't often use explanations as leverage. Not everything needs to be justified. Not every decision needs a backstory. Some choices are simply the result of self-awareness. When I stopped explaining, I stopped defending. And without defense, there was nothing to attack. I wasn't shutting people out, I was keeping myself steady. I was choosing clarity over conversation, calm over correction, presence over persuasion. Explaining yourself can feel like control. But real stability doesn't need agreement. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't even need understanding. It needs alignment. Alignment between what you feel, what you know, and what you do. When those things line up, words become optional, and silence becomes enough. This is part of the quiet work, letting your actions speak, letting your boundaries stand, and learning that you don't owe an explanation for choosing peace. There was a time when being misunderstood felt unbearable, like something had to be fixed, corrected, clarified immediately. I believed that if someone held the wrong version of me, it meant I had failed to communicate, that my silence was letting a false story grow. But I'm beginning to understand that misunderstanding isn't always a problem. Sometimes it's a signal that someone is interpreting from a distance, through their own emotions, their own history, their own needs. I noticed how quickly my body reacted when I thought someone had me wrong. The urge to explain, to justify, to be seen accurately. But every attempt to correct the narrative pulled me back into engagement, back into tension, back into something I had already stepped away from. Staying calm doesn't require agreement. It doesn't require shared understanding. It requires stability inside yourself. I'm learning that people will believe what they're ready to believe, and no amount of explanation can change a story someone needs to hold. Being misunderstood isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's the cost of not engaging, of not defending, of not reshaping yourself to fit someone else's perception. I don't need to correct every assumption. I don't need to respond to every interpretation. I don't need to manage how I'm seen when it comes at the expense of my peace. Calm doesn't come from control, it comes from acceptance. Acceptance that not everyone will understand your silence, your distance, your restraint. And that's okay. When I stay calm in the face of misunderstanding, I stay aligned. I don't abandon myself to be understood. I don't explain my way back into chaos. I let the misunderstanding exist without becoming it. This is part of the quiet work, remaining steady when clarity isn't mutual, choosing calm over correction, and learning that being at peace with yourself matters more than being understood by everyone else. There was a time when I measured my stability by how others responded to me. Approval meant I was steady. Disapproval meant I wasn't. Validation felt like proof that I was doing something right, and the absence of it felt unsettling, like something was missing. But slowly I began to notice how fragile that made me, how dependent my calm was on external reactions, on feedback, on reassurance, on being seen a certain way. When validation became the anchor, stability became conditional. It rose and fell with other people's moods, their understanding, their agreement, and that kind of calm never lasted. I'm learning now that real stability doesn't come from being affirmed. It comes from being aligned, from knowing what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, even when no one else sees it clearly. I noticed how much energy was spent checking for response, looking for confirmation, waiting to see if I was okay based on someone else's reaction. And then I noticed how quiet things became when I stopped checking. My body stayed regulated, my choices felt cleaner, my sense of self stopped shifting. Validation can feel supportive, but it's not the same as stability. Stability stays when validation disappears. It doesn't collapse under misunderstanding. It doesn't chase reassurance. It doesn't need applause to keep standing. When I stopped needing validation, I stopped outsourcing my sense of safety. I didn't become detached. I became rooted in my body, rooted in my choices, rooted in the quiet confidence of knowing where I stand without needing it reflected back. This kind of stability doesn't announce itself, it doesn't perform, it doesn't explain, it simply remains present, grounded, intact. This is part of the quiet work. Building a sense of steadiness that doesn't depend on being validated. Learning to stay calm even when no one claps. And realizing that peace doesn't need witnesses to be real. There was a time when peace felt incomplete unless someone else noticed it. Unless it was acknowledged, reflected back, seen as progress. I didn't realize how much of my calm depended on being recognized for it, how easily peace slipped when it went unnoticed. But I'm learning now that real peace doesn't require an audience. It doesn't need approval to stay intact. It doesn't need explanation to be real. Peace that needs witnesses is fragile. It rises when it's affirmed and fades when it's ignored. but peace that lives quietly holds its shape regardless of who sees it. I noticed how often I checked for reaction, a sign that what I was doing mattered, a signal that my restraint was working. And when I stopped checking, something unexpected happened. The calm stayed, even without feedback, even without acknowledgement. I didn't need to announce what I was doing differently. I didn't need to justify my distance. I didn't need to prove that I was healing. Peace doesn't perform. It doesn't seek confirmation. It doesn't require understanding. It simply exists when you stop pulling it into conversation. I'm realizing that the quietest shifts are often the most stable. The changes that don't need to be seen are the ones that last. When peace no longer needs witnesses, it becomes self-sustaining. It doesn't disappear when someone misunderstands you. It doesn't shrink when no one responds. It doesn't waver when the world stays loud. This kind of peace feels different in the body, slower, grounded, unforced. It doesn't announce itself, it just stays. This is part of the quiet work. Learning to let peace exist without needing it to be noticed, building a life that feels calm even when no one is watching, and realizing that the deepest peace doesn't ask to be seen. It simply remains. At first, calm felt like something I had to work toward, something fragile, temporary, easy to lose. I thought calm was a state you reached and then tried to hold on to before it slipped away. But over time, I began to notice something quieter happening. Calm wasn't coming and going, it was staying longer, showing up without effort. I didn't have to chase it. I didn't have to manufacture it. It began to arrive on its own, not because life got quieter, but because I stopped reacting the way I used to. Calm became less of a goal and more of a baseline. I noticed how my body responded differently now. Breathing stayed slow. Thoughts passed through without grabbing hold. Moments that once triggered urgency no longer pulled me out of myself. Calm didn't mean nothing happened. It meant what happened didn't take me with it. There was no effort to stay centered, no internal negotiation, no need to remind myself to breathe. Calm was already there, waiting. I'm realizing that calm isn't the absence of challenge. It's the absence of unnecessary engagement. When I stopped feeding every reaction, calm had room to settle. It stopped being something I visited and became something I lived inside. This doesn't mean I'm detached. It means I'm regulated. Present without being pulled. Aware without being overwhelmed. Calm as a default doesn't feel dramatic. It feels ordinary, steady, quietly reliable. And that's how I know it's real. This is part of the quiet work. When calm stops being effort and starts being your ground. When peace isn't something you return to, but something you remain inside of as you move forward.